everyone. To those on YouTube joining us, hi. We're just getting Instagram set up as well. Okay. Let's see. Okay, now everything should be fixed. It's one of those days, I guess. What I was saying before, there's a little bit more of a lag today than other days. And not quite sure why, but there's a little bit of a delay. I am going to keep a vigilant eye on the chat for your questions. So I will definitely be keeping an eye on that. And I'm excited. I'm very excited to start our tips and give you all some demonstrations. So now we're going to start. Okay, that looks good. We're going to start on Instagram. Awesome. This looks fantastic now. All sounds great and looks great. Well, I hope it sounds great. Y'all will tell me if it doesn't. I know it. All right. All right. Hello, my dolls. Welcome to a belated Cello Tip Thursday. Chelly and I were very, very busy this Halloween season, making some fun extra goodies for you all. So The October Cello Tip Thursday's a little bit delayed, but that's okay. We're all here now and sharing our practice room victories, tips and tricks, things like that. I love hearing what you dolls are interested in and what you contribute in the chat. So, a couple fun announcements. I personally am not we're gonna listen to holiday music, Christmas music ASAP. I'm still in spooky land. I'm in spooky land most days of the year. And if you are a kindred spirit in that regard, Shelly and I have some singles out on Spotify. We have our version of Bury a Friend by Billie Eilish, as well as Spooky Scary Skeletons by Andrew Gold. So if you haven't heard those singles yet and you're still in the spooky mood, check those out on Spotify and all other major streaming platforms as well. Amazon Music, Apple Music. So go check those out if you're still feeling the spooky musical vibes. All right, I'm gonna make a quick adjustment here. Boop, on YouTube, so y'all can see my bridge. There we go, perfect. So I hope you all had a wonderful, fun, and spooky Halloween. If you want to share what you did in the chat, I always love seeing what people did for Halloween. Awesome. So I can see, let's check out these chats. Hello, oh, we have a doll joining us from Brazil. Hello, hello. So we have our first question. Oh, very cool. So somebody made a request for a future Cello Tip Thursday to have My Electric Cello on the scene. That's definitely something I'm very interested in doing for the future. So you are reading my mind with Side Story on YouTube. So I think that would be really cool. If y'all would like to see My Electric Cello Setup on a future live stream, you can always DM me questions, or if you're on YouTube, you can comment on this video with questions you would like to see about V. I do have a new pedal board I've been breaking in and having some fun with, so I would absolutely love to share my electric cello setup and do a feature with V. I think that would be awesome. So that would be really cool. And let me know if that's something you dolls would be interested in seeing. Some electric cello stuff, tips and tricks. I'm learning more and more every day about electric cello playing. So there's a lot more room for my knowledge to grow, but I would be thrilled to share what I know so far. It's been really fun playing electric cello here in Vegas. Cool. So today we have Chelly, but in the future we'll definitely have V join us once, for sure. So for those of you who might be new, this is on a belated day, but this is Cello Tip Thursday. I know it's not Thursday, but I answer your questions. I give demonstrations if you need help with something in your practicing. If you have questions about the music industry, I know a lot of you are in conservatory audition mode right now, preparing for auditions. If you have any questions about preparing for auditions, I have done way too many college auditions, so I know what that's like. I can offer any advice because I've been through it multiple times. And I can demonstrate anything you'd like. Any techniques you want extra advice on, things like that. So this is to serve you all if you've never been to a live stream. So I keep a vigilant eye on the chats for people who want to ask questions. If I don't see any questions pop up right away, that's okay. Don't be shy. I'll start talking about techniques that I've been working on in my teaching practice, things I like to talk about with students in my day-to-day teachings. So we'll start with that, and I will keep an eye on the chat, and we'll see how all that goes. So, let me just triple check Chelly. Yeah, that's all good. Awesome. So, one thing. Oh, hello. Someone wrote something very nice. Okay, cool. I see a question in the chat, and there's also something I do want to address here. Somebody made a very good point. Good to see you. I missed you on my feed. Good luck with your teachings. And I'll say something really quick before we get to the cello demonstrations. For you dolls on Instagram, for some reason, something is going on with the algorithm of Instagram. I'm not quite sure what it is, and I'm not the only creator who has noticed this. I've seen a lot of comments from creators with huge followings that something's going on where a lot of our content isn't being shown. So I promise you, I'm posting almost every day. There are things in the feed that not everyone is seeing. So we're going to do our research, figure out maybe what the new secret formula is for getting out there. But I don't want you dolls to think Chelly and I have forgotten you. We are still creating content for you all. And hopefully something will develop or change. So I promise you we're still posting, still creating really fun stuff for you all. So if you've been missing Chelly and I, check out our page. Go to the Cello Doll Instagram page and you'll see lots of fun, spooky content we made this October. All right, we have a question. Can you explain what is the universal scale and how to practice it? You might know something I don't. The universal scale. Now, it's very possible this is a name. I know what it is, but this is a name I haven't heard it called by. I know there is a finger pattern for scales that is universal across a lot of scales. So we could talk about that, kind of a universal finger pattern that works across most scales. Maybe that is what you're thinking about. I'm not entirely sure. So if that rings a bell, if you could let me know, that would be great. If not, I'm going to start talking about a scale, a trick for remembering advanced scales. Now, this is something I want to make a YouTube video on eventually, but there is a trick, and this is the advanced top way to play your scales, the finger pattern for that. And there are a couple rules that have helped my students to remember this. Number one, you will not be using open strings. That's the first rule. Other than, of course, the C string, because in C major, yes, okay, great. So we're on the same page. Awesome. So the first rule is to avoid open strings. So the only exception is going to be C major, because we have to start with open C, of course, our lowest note. So that's the first rule. You avoid all open strings. The second rule, before you get into thumb position territory, is you will use all four fingers before you move on. So we're not going to have a situation where we have, let's say, 1, 3, 1, 3. You got to use all four fingers, so you'll have your pinky playing a pitch before you shift or go on to your next hand shape. So avoiding open strings, using all four fingers. And that will get us into thumb position territory. Now, I will say this should be attempted if you've worked on thumb position. You know what your harmonic is, if your teacher has talked to you. If your teacher has talked to you about the halfway harmonic, and if you're comfortable going up into thumb position, you are a great candidate for working on advanced scale finger patterns. If not, that's totally okay. This is something you can look forward to and you can ask your teacher about, and they'll be able to gauge when you're ready for this. So let's take an example of a scale. How about, let's do D. Let's start with a simpler key signature. D major has two sharps, F sharp and C sharp. So we're going to avoid open strings and use all four fingers. So we're going to start on D, have our extension. Now we go to F, we're on F sharp. So D, E, F sharp. The next note is G, but I don't want to use my open string, so I'm going to shift up to G in fourth position. Now we use all four fingers again. B natural goes to C sharp. Use all four fingers. E. Next is F sharp, second position. A goes to B. So those are the first two octaves of D major, using this rule, or these two rules we discussed. Now, a way to know, did I do it right? We're doing D major. And to know that you've done D major right, you should land with a fourth finger on your second octave, completely done. If you're on 3 or 2, something got a little mixed up on the way. So we want fourth finger at the top of our second octave. Okay, so I'm going to play it one more time without chatting through the whole thing, so you can see my use of all four fingers and avoiding open strings. So. Okay, now our next octave is going to surpass our harmonic, because we're going to go from this D up here to the next D, and our harmonic's in between. Once you are going to encounter that harmonic note, or a flat, depending on the scale and the key signature, once you get past that middle A, you're going to use the next universal finger pattern. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. That is the little saying to remember those. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And you do that up the cello for the rest of the scale. Now, I'm glad we picked D major, because this encounters something some of my students have asked about. So after our D, after this D, we have E, F sharp in fourth position. But by now, you've probably played 1, 3, E, F sharp in fourth position, simple. That's okay. Take the 1, 2 with a grain of salt. It can either be 2 or 3, depending on if you start a little lower, like we are with D major. I just like to do the 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, because it's really easy to remember. But for example, I wouldn't go 1, 2, E, F sharp. I'm used to doing 1, 3. So that's a little adaptation that might happen. So, but once you get past that harmonic, it's always, you are going to use 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Just kind of below it, you might do a little bit of adjusting. But again, it's not wrong to always do 1, 2. That's also fine. So, the 1, 2, 3, lands us on the next D. So I'll do that one more time. And if you want to do the fourth octave, guess what? Same fingering. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And that way you get to the top. Let's do that one more time. Okay, so again, when do we use the 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3? When you are going to encounter your middle A. Whenever you're going to go past that or through that note region is when you want to use it. Or another way to think of it, octaves 3 and 4, you will use that pattern. So bottom 2 octaves have their set of rules, top 2 octaves have their own set of rules. And that's the universal advanced fingering for all scales. So I'm going to play the D major scale one more time just to demonstrate, and then we'll go on to our next question. Okay? I know it's a lot of steps, but I went through this where I had to figure out the rule, and it took me a long time to figure this out when I had moved on to advanced scales. But the thing is, once I got a hang of those rules, it was so easy to adapt it to any key. It was very easy to adapt it. So kind of taking the time to work through the nuts and bolts of those rules is really worth it, because when you get a handle on it, you just change your starting pitch and the rules are the same. So let's do the bottom octave using all 4 fingers before we move on to the next note and avoiding our open strings. Now 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And to come down, you're going to go back the way you came. So regardless of what version of scales you're working on, whether you're doing beginner scales, intermediate scales, it doesn't matter if you're using open strings right now or not. Scales should be a mirror image. Whatever finger pattern you do coming up, you got to do it the same way coming down for consistency and intonation, and it's going to make it a lot easier to memorize your scales. So whatever you do on the way up, you do it in reverse coming back down. All right, very good question. Cool, awesome. You're most welcome. Very glad to help. And again, that is on the list of YouTube vlogs that are going to be coming, because I think it's a very important resource. And the way when I had to do that, I basically had to figure it out. I was given kind of a couple rules and then go have fun, figure it out. So I think it'd be a nice resource to have for people that are at that point. Let me check the Instagram. I see lots of dolls in the chat. Yay. No questions yet, but that's okay. Cool. Awesome. So that's handling scales. Great. So one thing I did want to talk with you dolls about, until we see our next question, is about bow use and dynamics. When you start getting into dynamics, you want to play soft, you want to play loud. The bow and having a good connection with your bow arm weight will lead you to success with that. And I'm going to give you a couple tips so you can experiment if you are beginning to play with more dynamic contrasts. So we can play soft. It's usually notated as piano with a P, or we can play medium, which is mezzo forte, and loud, which is forte. There are a couple more dynamics around that, but those are kind of the basic ones: piano, mezzo forte, forte. Now with the bow, you are going to have different types of bow speed and bow weight. Now when you think about bow speed, if a teacher tells you that, pretty sure they're not going to be talking about your tempo. They're not going to be telling you to speed up. What they're telling you is how much length you're going to use. So if I had a constant tempo, let's do maybe 1, 2, 3, 4. Versus the tempo's pretty much the same, but my bow speeds are very different. So the quicker you draw the bow, the more length you will use. The slower, the less length. So bow speed, bow length are quite related. And of course, many videos, many times we've discussed the heavy bow arm on these platforms. So let's say you want to play soft. Oh, and there's a third component I can't forget is your bow placement. So between the fingerboard and the bridge, are you here? Are you closer to the bridge? Are you on top of the fingerboard or at the very edge of the fingerboard? Where is your bow placement? So this is kind of a vertical question. So if you want to play soft, generally you still want a lower elbow, always want a low elbow. And you can play a little closer to the fingerboard. You don't really go above it unless you have a marking in music that will tell you so, and we'll get to that. But you want to be right by the fingerboard, and you want to be in the middle of the bow. Generally middle, maybe lower third. If you're by the frog, it's pretty heavy by the frog, and I have to work really hard. I have to work very hard to play soft down here because the frog is so heavy. I can be much more delicate further out. So I'm a little lighter. I'm not lifting this way. I'm just, instead of sinking down here, maybe it's a couple inches higher. I'm using a soft bow, and I'm by the fingerboard. Now to play loud, I'm going to go closer to the bridge, somewhere between 50 and 75%. And I am going to use more length. So and now we have a much bigger sound. So, to have a couple bonus points, if you get those basics really solid with the bow, we've talked about vertical, some horizontal, and there's a bit of a tilt situation going on as well. So, if I have my bow, let me rephrase that. If I have my bow and my stick is tilted a little bit away from me, a little bit, that's going to activate more of a flat bow hair. Okay, so like that. You can see it. Where it looks like the hair's disappearing, but it's just getting covered by the stick. That's going to really activate full use of my hair. And you can do that by kind of turning your wrist like you're revving on a motorcycle. It's kind of like that motion, like you're on a motorcycle and you're revving it. On the opposite, If I tilt my stick towards me, I become on the tippy toes of my bow hair. So if I take the bow and I tilt the stick towards me, I'm now on the tippy toes of my bow hair using some strands, maybe a quarter, 30% of my bow hair. So if I bring that to the bridge, if I bring that to the fingerboard, I haven't had my afternoon coffee yet. It's my reward after this stream. So my words are getting a little mixed up. So it gives a very distant, far away type of sound, which can be very effective. Now remember I mentioned there was some marking to play on the fingerboard. That is called sol tasso, and that translates basically to on the fingerboard. So if you see that in your music, you can do what teachers have been telling you for the longest time not to do. That marking gives you permission to play on your fingerboard. But you never want to go super high up, just a little bit above. So that's a little bit about some tips with achieving more dynamic contrast on your cello. So bow length, how quickly or how slowly you're going to draw the bow, the amount of bow arm weight, always with a low elbow, but you can be pretty heavy versus a little lighter. You never want to lift up artificially like that. It's just sinking versus maybe a little lighter. And then we have, are you in the middle of the bow? Are you in the powerhouse of the bow, which is the lower quarter? And then where are you here? Are you by the bridge or by the fingerboard? A lot of variables. And for bonus points, you can tilt your stick. So think of it this way. More stick towards you, less hair. Less stick towards you, more hair. It's kind of inverse, where we rotate our wrist to get less hair or more hair. I saw a great follow-up question on YouTube. Does the same idea apply for pits? In a sense, yes, but it is much more subtle. So if I were to do pizzicato, and for those of you who might not know, pizzicato is plucking. It's plucking your strings. Now, generally, my default pizzicato is a couple inches above the end of the fingerboard. So I tend to be here. Now, if I want to be quiet, I'll probably, it's a little more mellow. It's a little softer, a little calmer, but it's not so much where I don't think I've ever really plucked up here or going beyond the fingerboard. You don't really pluck up here unless in some modern music they might instruct you to specifically pluck from there. But yes, you're gonna get a little more robust sound if you're slightly closer to the bridge. If you come away from the bridge, it is softer. So it is a similar concept, being closer to the fingerboard, closer to the bridge, but it's very subtle and you don't really leave the fingerboard territory. You're always technically over the fingerboard with pits, but being closer to the bridge will give you a heftier sound than coming up closer to the fingerboard. That's a very good question. It's a very subtle thing, but it's very important, especially when you're in orchestra. And in cello sections, there could be anywhere from 10 to 14 of you, and you all have to pluck pizzicato very quietly. You generally would do that as an ensemble, move your hand up so you all have a bit thinner of a sound. It's a very good question. Good. Good, good, good. So we got that. Awesome. Any questions on Instagram? Don't be shy, Instagram. If you have any questions for Chelly and I, even if you're not a cellist. Oh, we have one. Okay. I was going to say, even if you're not a cellist, you could always ask questions about life as a freelance musician in Vegas. What in the world is that like? You know? Just a chance for us to all get together and share. It's kind of like cello tips / Q&A. Okay, so we got a question from Instagram. Greetings. Please advise on big string crossings on Popper 1. Struggling to make a clear sound. Love you, EXO. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. Of course. I would love to discuss Popper 1. And for those of you who may not know, the Popper High School of Cello Playing, I know it seems so perfect. I actually have been dusting off some of these as a little fun challenge for myself. And seeing what it's like to just read them cold and fun stuff like that. Seeing how good can I get it in just 2 days. Little challenges like that for myself. So, if you don't know this book, The Popper High School of Cello Playing, it's a fabulous book for intermediate cellists, and it's going to help propel you into advanced cello playing. Popper himself was a cellist, so he knows the instrument really well. So a lot of these etudes fall really nicely on the fingerboard, and they have a lot of finger patterns that are very intuitive in advanced repertoire. So you're going to learn the whole territory of the roadmap of the cello really well, playing Popper etudes. So Popper number 1. All right. I just want to make sure you said number 1. Sorry. Was that number 1? Yeah, number 1. Okay. So, yes. Popper number 1 does have some bigger string crossing jumps. And a lot of them require you to skip 1 string or even 2. Some of them you have to skip 2 strings. And it has a lot of scale-like patterns, repeating finger patterns, and in between there are a lot of jumps. Even right away, you're going from G string to A string. You're skipping the D string. So right there, another one. So how would I work on this? This doll who posed this question said, I'm having a hard time getting a clear sound. And there are a couple options. And one thing is, I will tell you the most common things that could happen. And then it's kind of your job to go back to your practice room and do some detective work. Is it the first thing Cello Doll said? Was it the third thing? Is it a combination? So sometimes we think, oh, my bow's the problem, but it's actually the left hand. So hypervigilance is always very important. You're not only a cellist, but you're a detective when you practice. So let's start with the left hand. So when you have a big string crossing like that, you have to be settled in for the first note and also the second note. So in the very first 2 notes, 2. And if you see 2, my second finger is a little ahead of the bow. And that's key, because if I go too fast, if my second finger's not ready with a healthy left hand weight, you get kind of that scratchy, squeaky tone. Now, notice I said weight. You're kind of pulling. It's almost like you're leaning the neck. You're leaning into the neck and the cello is coming towards you. You never squeeze the string in between. That's a no-no. That's going to really be a big problem for your left hand. So you're always weighed down. Just like how the bow is weighed down, your left hand's weighed down. So making sure you have good left hand contact. So I would pause, left, right, left, right. Left. So I'm putting in a little pause. You can even put in a longer one. Actually, let me skip to the big part everyone always asks about, where you're going from the lowest string to the highest string. So we have that part. A lot of bow acrobatics. So I think if we isolate this area, it's really gonna highlight a lot of the exercises I'm gonna tell you about. So the pause is to set the left hand, then follow with the bow. Don't rush with the bow before the left hand's ready. So go. Same thing coming back. We got a double whammy. We have a double whammy. Because after the A string in this passage, you have to go back to the C string. So you have a double whammy string crossing. So prep on the C string. Prep. So I'm giving a little bit of a pause so that my left hand can be ahead of the right hand. The other thing about this particular passage, this measure, we have two voices going on. The C string voice and the A string voice. So on the A string, well, let me start with the C string. We have kind of a creepy chromatic line, mostly chromatic. On the A string, it's very repetitive. So I would ask my students, which string has the most interesting part? The C string. It has that nice line. So in a passage like this, I would tell you to just lightly graze the A string. A lot of people try to play every single note in this part evenly. And it just kind of sounds like a bunch of loud notes with the bow being very busy. So I would tell you to bring out the bottom and lightly graze the top. Lightly graze the top. There we go. So it would be more like, again, to really show the different importance and to really bring out that bottom line in the bass, bringing out that line. Now, if you notice, I'm not having my elbow switch entirely for both strings. I'll show you an example. If I were to play something like this, where I'm only on the C string and then only on the A string, you will see my elbow shift gears. It goes from being a little lower to a little higher. But in this part, we have to go back and forth. And if you do this with your elbow, holy smokes, you're going to be tired and it's going to be hard to play cleanly with an arm that is so active. So remember our important line on the C string. I would keep your elbow on the C string level and dip up mostly with your wrist, a little bit with the elbow. But I don't want to go too far from the C string zone. And the C string is thicker, lower strings are thicker, and you really want to have a heavy bow arm you can count on to be consistent. If you're constantly if you're constantly switching back and forth, your consistency changes with each cross. So instead of, make sure you're not doing that. Make sure, now I'm still moving, I can't really play like this, but you notice it's much smaller than going 100% towards both. I'm kind of 100% C string, 60% A string, and that way it's much easier to come back and be heavy. So you can use that pause exercise, pause between each string crossing. You can do it to check the right hand and elbow. Check. And then check the left hand. So go. Set. Set. So you can pause to check both. So I know that's a lot, but this etude, you got it right away. It's all about those string crossings. So I hope that helps to clean up your tone and get more consistent sound. Oh, I'm so glad to see you too on YouTube. That's so sweet. Someone just said they're happy to see me. We're happy to see you all. Are you kidding me? If you guys didn't come to the live stream, I would be sitting here talking to myself for an hour. So you dolls are who make the stream come alive, truly. I talk a lot when I practice, so I basically talk to myself quite a bit already. But yeah. Okay, so we got some questions from Instagram. Let me just hydrate real quick. All right. Can you talk about the equipment you use for solo performances? All right, that's a good question. Thank you for your time and tips. Oh, you're most welcome. Can you talk about the equipment you use for solo performance? Now, I must ask you, are you talking about an acoustic cello, like celli, or an electric cello? Because the gear is going to be slightly different. So I'm curious about that. It also depends on what type of music you're playing. So for example, let's say I was going to go play Bach, solo Bach at a speakeasy. Wouldn't that be cool? Or something like that. If I was going to go play solo Bach and it's just me and it's a small venue, I just need a comfy chair and celli and my rock stop. And of course my tuner to check the tuning. But that's all I would really need. If it was a bigger space, where if there's a lot of people in it, socializing, chatting, and I might not be heard, then I would get a microphone. I would get a microphone so I could be amplified with celli. And that requires a little extra gear. So, what you can't, because I'm using a mic for YouTube right now. Let me see if, okay. So if I wanted to have a mic with celli, then I would need what is called an interface. Or sometimes the venue will have a setup where they can have a microphone for you that is already wired and ready to match the venue equipment, if you're lucky. Before I get to that, I see Cello Cat in the chat. Love Cello Cat. Yes. If you don't know Cello Cat, where have you been? Go check out Cello Cat. Her projects are amazing, and she has a really awesome string trio. So go check out Cello Cat. Love Cello Cat. Good to see you. Oh, love you too, girl. So yes, so if you have a mic and you want to be amplified, if there's any situation where you need to be amplified, talk to the venue. Talk to the venue. I can't tell you how important that is, because some venues have everything you could ever need and more, and some venues aren't going to have anything, nothing. And in that case, if you show up to the gig and you don't know that, you're in trouble. So I would say talk to the venue, and they might tell you bring a mic and an interface. And an interface is basically, it looks like a box. You can hook your microphone into it, and then the interface can be plugged into a sound system, or sometimes you don't need the interface. Again, you got to talk to the venue. Sometimes I also will have to bring an amp. I've had to bring an amp for many rehearsals. So sometimes you'll need an amp as well. There is another piece of gear I have, and I can also show you this. Yeah, Cello Cat beat me to it. DI box. Girl, how did you know? I'm going to go get my DI box. But I think what she's saying, also, your microphone, well, yeah. She's so funny. She goes, I love carrying in both a cello and a whole PA, like a whole system. So I'm going to also show you, dolls, what a DI box is, and tell you a little bit about that, because even if you're solely an acoustic player, it is important to know what a DI box is. Even if you always want to do acoustic and you have no interest in electric, this is important. So let me get that. I have my gig. Oh my gosh. So everything I bring to a gig is in my gigging suitcase. Ta-da! This is always packed. I never take anything out of it unless I'm traveling by plane. So I know everything's always in here. I never have to pack a gig bag. And while I'm getting this out, someone asked, what day are your live streams? They're supposed to be Thursdays, but because of Halloween and all the projects that Shelly and I have put out, we're doing a belated stream today on a Friday. So this isn't the typical day, just so you know. Yeah. Typically, it's going to be the last Thursday of every month, but with holidays, sometimes we have to adjust. So I always post what time. Time is probably going to be changing in the near future. Right now, I think it's going to end up being 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, 5:30 Pacific Time, because my teaching schedule, I'm very delighted to have more students. So I gotta switch it up. So it's gonna be a little later for future months. Again, I announce all streams on my YouTube channel and Instagram. So I usually post the day prior. Cool. So this person said, yes, acoustic for bigger events. I'm going to tell you about this DI box. I have a big one. This was recommended to me from a pro who said this is one of the best. It's called a Rosette Acoustic DI preamp. So this is a little different. This is a preamp. Yeah, she said, oh, fancy. Cello Cat knows. This is a fancy piece of gear. So basically, this is a preamp and a DI box in one. And basically, preamp, see a bunch of knobs. I'll do it on YouTube too. There's a bunch of knobs on here where I can adjust. Basically, I can EQ my entire instrument. I can adjust the high end, the low end, the middle, and this gives you a little more control on your sound quality and the sound quality of the venue. So if you go to a venue and you hear yourself coming out of the speaker and you go, I'm missing my voluptuous cello bass. Where's the bass? You can go to the bass, levels, bass, and you can turn it up. So sometimes if a venue doesn't have high quality speakers, it's nice to have a preamp in addition to a DI box. A DI box doesn't have as many features, but they're about half the price. So it depends on your budget as well. And if you are going to have a DI box, you need at least 2 1/4-inch cables. 1/4-inch cables, basically, oh gosh, don't look at my cables. I packed from my last gig very quickly, so they're not all pretty and spiraled. But I mean, a 1/4-inch, oh my gosh, my gear. I mean, 1/4-inch, it looks like what you would expect to see coming out of an electric guitar, 1/4-inch cable. So you need at least 2 of those. And I can't say enough how important it is to communicate with your venue, because sometimes they have 1/4-inch. They often don't. So you really got to ask what you would need. So again, the difference between a DI, from my understanding, a DI box and a preamp is a preamp, you can control more of your sound levels. If you want more bass, if you want more high end, you can kind of adjust your cello to the speaker, which I like because all speakers are going to sound different. And if you just want to amplify your instrument and you're on a budget, I would get a DI box. They usually have a couple knobs, but they usually don't have as many. Now the final thing is, how are you going to amplify your acoustic cello? Right? Because one of these 1/4-inch cables has to go into your cello. Otherwise, the sound can't travel. So this has to go somewhere. So what are you going to do? I'll tell you. Oh, this was like the biggest thing I learned a while back when I was in college and all that stuff. So I'm going to tell you, if you have a fancy cello. So for example, I had a gig when I was in college, and there was no way I had 2 cellos. No way. Could not afford it, ever. But I needed an amplified cello. I was like, what am I going to do? Because a lot of amplifying systems have to go under one of the feet of your bridge. I'll show you that on gigging cello at the end. And I was like, man, I don't want to always adjust my bridge, put on the amplifier, take it off, switch it, finagle the bridge. I didn't want to be doing that all the time. So there's actually an amplifier you can buy that doesn't require you to move the bridge. Now, the amplifying, it does the job. Especially if you have an expensive cello and you don't want to mess with the bridge, it will do the job for you. But just know you have to ensure it's really secure for it to work. If something's under your cello bridge, it's stuck there. So you really, it could fall out. That's the thing I'm going to warn you about. So you have to really test it. Make sure you got it in very securely. Oh, sorry. I know it's in here. I just haven't. Oh my gosh. I can show you. Oh, this is great. I know what I can do. So fun fact. I have spare bridges. Because I had a friend once tell me, bring your spare bridge. God forbid something happens to your bridge and you're at a gig. Okay, so it's called the Fishman. It's by Fishman with one N. And it looks, this is what the amplifier looks like. Kind of looks like a silver tube, and the tube comes out of this clamp. So I secured this clamp with Velcro because the sticky adhesive wears out. And this goes on your tailpiece, actually. So this sticky bit, that goes on your tailpiece. And this kind of silver cylinder is what the 1/4 inch goes into. Yeah, that was my first pickup. See, this is a good first pickup. If you've never picked up your cello before, amplification, this is a good first one. So the 1/4 inch goes in here, and then you can't really see, there's like a little copper rectangle. I'm going to show you on YouTube. There's a little copper rectangle. And that goes under your bridge. See, it can fall out. I'll tell you in a sec. This goes under your bridge right here. So on one of these sides of these little arches, you wedge this metal piece into here, and this will pick up the frequencies from your bridge. Now, the Fishman comes with these. You have to be so careful. They're very delicate. I'm glad you asked this question because this is very important. I did not know how to do this, and I had to ask around so much. Maybe I'll make another video about this because people don't really talk about this a lot. Because, again, you can take a microphone, just put it in front of your cello, but the microphone could distort your sound. It's going to give you a much more authentic sound if you can amplify your instrument through 1/4 inch cables. So the Fishman comes with these tiny, tiny, tiny pieces of wood. They're very delicate. And you can use it as a wedge. You can use it as a wedge to tighten the space. And you can shorten it, make it whatever length you want, but you basically wedge it in, and it's gonna tighten around. It's gonna tighten around. Cello Cat also brings up a great point. I know, I want one. There are these microphones, DPA mics. So you can get a clip-on mic, but they're very expensive. They're like $700. So someday if you want to save your pennies and just clip something onto your bridge, you can get one of those mics. The Fishman pickup, I think, was about $200, $250. So it's more affordable, I guess. I always have this in my case, just in case. Sorry, I put this in my gig bag because I'm going to show you one more system, and then we have to close out the live stream. So the reason I have this in my bag is a break glass in case of emergency, in case my permanent pickup for some reason doesn't work. If it's on the fritz, I have a backup. So this goes back in the gigging bag from whence it came with my bridges, and that's where that's gonna go. Okay, final thing. Again, this is all so important. I think a lot of acoustic players don't know about this, myself included. I didn't learn about pickup systems until I was like 23 years old. I knew nothing. So this is very important. All right, so we talked about DI boxes, preamps, 1/4 inch cables, the Fishman. Put a spare bridge in your case or gig bag. The gig bag is gonna go back in its designated corner. probably gonna have to use this next week. Okay. Now, say goodbye to Chelly because you're gonna meet gigging cello. So, da-da, goodbye, Chelly. Let's get out Big Red. Big Red is my gigging cello because she's big and she's red. And I'm going to show you the top-rated permanent pickup. I say permanent with a grain of salt. You can take it out, but it's going to require you to untune all your strings and finagle your bridge. Oh, good to see you. Yeah, oh, y'all are being so nice in the chat today. I mean, you guys are always nice. I shouldn't say that. But it's very nice. I'm so glad you appreciate these. So this is Big Red. Like I said, she's big and she's red. Yeah. So on Big Red, I have the Realist Copperhead cello pickup. And I've had multiple people tell me this is one of the best of the best. Don't quite remember how much you were. A couple hundred. Don't quite remember. But this is, yay, Cello Cat uses it too. See, you're getting double knowledge because Cello Cat's here. Honestly, Cello Cat knows so much more than I do about gear, tech gear. Yeah, I thought they were like $400 as well. I'm gonna hit up Cello Cat maybe sometime next year, warning about like PA systems and stuff, because I gotta up the game. So, Cello Cat, make a vlog on tech, how to run your show, something. She's so knowledgeable. Okay, so the Copperhead, oh no, I put my 1/4 inch away. Okay, so the 1/4 inch comes out from the bottom. It has kind of a metallic, there it is on Instagram. You can see the metallic entryway. It's brass right by the tailpiece there. That's where the 1/4 inch comes out of. And it's Velcroed around my tailpiece, so it's nice and snug. Here's the connecting cable. And we have a bigger copper plate under the foot of my bridge. So with the Fishman, it kind of had to be wedged in here under this part in the middle. This actually goes under the foot of your bridge. And that gives you a tight clamp, a very solid connection for the frequencies to travel down this wire into the Realist pickup, out of the 1/4 inch, and wherever it has to go. So I like having this on my gigging cello because I never have to take it out. I always know it's going to be amplified, and it's never failed me. It's really, really great. Yeah. So this is great. The Realist Copperhead pickup. So you have 3 options. The Fishman, a clip-on mic, which is probably the most expensive option, and then in the middle we have the Realist Copperhead pickup. The thing about, I don't know, I need to look more into these clip-on mics for the bridge. I'm curious how that relates to a 1/4 inch cable. Maybe there's another cable that comes out and you hook it in. Because they always appear to be wireless to me, but maybe I'm not looking close enough. Then you start getting into wireless gear, and then that's when, that's a little beyond my skill set, is wireless, but that's the next step. I want to be wireless, but it's a lot of money. Okay, my dolls. Thank you so much for... Oh, Cello Cat's got the answer. See, I'm telling you, she's a pro. It goes to an XLR. Well, we didn't get an XLR cables today. It's basically another cable. See, the more you get into production work, you start acquiring so many cables. I think I have like 5 cables because you need backups for the cables and you need backups for the backups for the cables because cables break so often. Yeah. So thank you all so much. Thank you for a wonderful live stream. Awesome questions. I love it. You dolls always keep me on my toes. I'm so fascinated to know what you all are interested in learning about. I think it's great. Thank you so much for being here and for contributing. Contributing your questions, your enthusiasm. Again, having people contribute extra knowledge in the chat is really awesome because I learned something new with all of you. You all are awesome, and thank you so much. Chelly and I appreciate you. Big Red and I appreciate you. If you ever see me in Vegas, I'm playing Big Red. That's who I play with 9 times out of 10 because I'm often outdoors. I have to be amplified. I'm going to be in a crowded backstage area with a lot of gear, a lot of people. So if you see me in Vegas, it's usually Big Red. For a lot of pop concerts, weddings, and stuff like that. All right. Cello Cat says, have a great weekend. You too, Cello Cat, and all of you. Happy Friday. Have an amazing weekend. And one other thing, keep an eye out because the Cello Doll merch store is going to be getting a special edition for the fall. So the Cello Doll merch store is going to get more merch. Now, if you didn't know I have merch, now you know. There's Cello Doll merch. There's fun shirts with a beautiful design I made with my mom, who's a graphic designer. She's a graphic artist. So we made this Cello Doll design together. If you're on Instagram, go to my bio link and you'll see a little tab for Cello Doll merch. If you're on YouTube, the link is in the description of the video, and I'll also put it in a pinned comment. If you want to check out some merch and get excited, and keep tabs for a new launch, a new product, and as a little hint, it's going to match the cold weather that's coming, so it's going to keep you nice and cozy. Okay, my dolls, thank you all so much. And we'll see you at the end of November. I'm still going to do a November live stream. This counted towards October. So you get 2 for 1 this month. You're going to get another live stream at the end of November. All right, my dolls. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.